yes, yes. And then, and you can feel windmills and sand outside. All right? Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Well, when I was probably like early teens, my first saxophone instructor was a member of the club. And I used to go over to his house and practice and everything. And he would tell me stories about the club, the musicians that came there and stuff like that. Then he told me about a workshop that they had every Saturday. It was in this building on the corner of Utica and Main Street. And I met a lot more of the gentlemen there from the club. And they told me, you gotta come to the club. And so eventually that's how I got here. And it was great because all these guys, they were like a second father or grandfather to me. And they just took me under their wing and they showed me so much, not only, playing the saxophone, but, how to play jazz correctly and improvise and having fun. And these guys had fun. Well, this all goes back to the early 1900s. Again, the law of the land back then was segregation. And you had your black bathroom, you had your white bathroom. You had your black stores, you had your white stores. Back in the day, the unions ruled as far as, playing in nightclubs and bars and stuff. A strong arm, not like it is today. So for a musician of color, if he wanted to play, he had to have a card. Now there was this one problem. He was black. So with that, he wasn't allowed to join the local because of that fact. But in those early 1900s, the African American musicians of the day petitioned to get a local. It took them several times, but in 1917, oddly enough, the first year of World War I, they got their charter to be a local. And these guys worked hard and they wanted to make sure that this local would stick around. So they made sure that all the musicians that were in this local was top-notch musicians. So this passing the audition was no piece of cake. They would maybe play the song in a particular key that it was written in, and then they would change the key about 4 or 5 different times, or they would change the tempo or whatever. But they figured if they could make those leaps with no problem, then he was good enough for the local. And they built a strong reputation. And with that, it was fun to be in that local. Now they had such a great time, they decided, hey, let's do something together after. And again, being black, they couldn't stay and party in a white, let's say, hotel or a restaurant or anything like that. So they needed a place that they can go to socialize. In the very beginning, they didn't have a club of their own. So that, you know, they went to either houses or this, that, and the other. But one of the original members, Lloyd Plummer, he was an insurance agent by day, and he was renting out a spot right here in this building, 145 Broadway. In fact, his office is where we're sitting at right now. The owner of the building told him that he was looking to sell this building. So he told his membership, and this was back in 1934. They move in, 35, they buy the building, but before they purchased the building, they decided to make the club, which was their social arm, the title holder and the deed holder of the building. And with that, this was really a smart element, because later on that would prove to be something that would save the building for them. So in 1935, July 25th, they incorporate the club, and now they own the building. And that's how the club part of the deal was born. So now, when they got done with their gigs, even the famous musicians of color, they all came here to socialize afterwards. And really, that's where the history and all the good stuff really kicks in, because now upstairs we would have the likes of Dizzy Gillespie, or, you know, Miles Davis, Coltrane, Charlie Parker, members from the Ellington Band, from the Counts Band, you know, Ella Fitzgerald. All these musicians came here. You would have a mob of people out front hanging out just to get a glimpse of all these famous people that came through. In fact, one time we even had Frank Sinatra and Dean Martin show up to the club just so they could see if Sammy was here. You know, so it was amazing times. And again, we did have white musicians that came up there and hung out and played too. So even though it said colored musician, it was welcoming to everybody. Because again, it was about the music. Really, the politics was more with the club owners and things like that. But as far as the musicians went, they wanted to play together, and that's what it was all about. But in those early years, we would have young cats like Don Red Menza or Bobby Militello, you know, guys like that you know today. They came up here as kids, teenagers. Their parents would bring them up here, and they would sit next to, you know, these guys and the stars that came into town, and that's how they learned. Maynard Ferguson, Oscar Peterson would come down from Toronto to sit in with the guys here. So the club and the local had a strong reputation, not only locally but internationally and nationally, and that's what made it really nice to want to be here and be a part of this. Well, I tell you, the big thing that helped us out was the building of this museum. That kind of put us back on the map. I mean, the place was always known for the music, but when we put this museum up to show our rich history about the music and the many famous people that were here, and a lot of the local guys that went on to tour with these big names, that helped out a lot. Even for myself as a longtime member and now president, I mean, there was many of these gentlemen that I played with and sat next to in the band. I didn't even know all their history until we finished this museum. So it was enlightening for me just as well as everybody else. But with that, again, now we're getting recognized not only locally, but on a world scale. It's really nice to hear people talking about this place today like they did back then. And now by this being the 100-year anniversary, you know, we've been doing some events. We just finished our gala over at the Hotel Lafayette, which is a landmark in its own right. But coming up this July, the last week of July to be exact, we're going to have another major celebration, a week-long celebration, which would start off with my big band performing outside of the club, and will be in conjunction with the group called Slow Roll. They ride bikes, and they'll have about 1,000 people there. So again, just another way to expose the club to the city and to the world. Then we'll have other events during the course of the week leading up to the Saturday Festival, which starts at noon, and we'll have bands outside in the stage outside. We'll have bands upstairs playing, and then we'll end the night with a performance over at the Albright Knox Art Gallery. But the whole thing is we want to not only celebrate it here, but we're going to be around the city as well, so we can kind of, you know, give them a taste of what to look for that festival on Saturday. To go back to the festival and doing the week celebration, we're going to have quite a few actually young musicians performing. We have a lot of young musicians who are currently on the road. In other words, these are the guys who continue the legacy that this city has and this club has. So we're bringing in a lot of these guys from out of town to play. We have a lot of young talent that comes up on Sunday for the jam session, and we're reaching out to the schools, the colleges, the high schools, even the middle schools, and we either go out and talk to them at their place, or they've been coming here for tours and then going upstairs to see the club, and in some cases even have them playing up there. But we are reaching out to the youth, because again, we want to keep this story going, and you know, who knows, have future, you know, legends like we had in the past. You know, the Grovers and Rick James and others like that. You know, Alvin Shepard naturally. So if we can bring even one person like that, that would make what we're doing today successful.
Mm-hmm.